Does it really matter if you buy a cheap XLR cable, one like this one, or should you shell out the money for an uber expensive one? Ooh. There've been a lot of gimmicks over the years with cabling, and honestly, they've been just that, gimmicks. But on the other side of the coin, there are some things you might want to consider in more expensive options. Okay then, let's talk about that. Now, let's get this out of the way right now. Cheap cables will not sound different from expensive ones. Sonically, they're going to be exactly the same. End of story. Video done. You know what? If you like this video, punch that like button. Wait a minute. There must be more to this, right? Okay then. If it doesn't matter sonically, why in the hell would anyone fork out these ridiculous prices for cables? Well, there is more to a cable than just sound. Now, to get it out of the way, the reason there is no sonic difference between a cheap cable and an expensive one is, well, cable is cable. Wire is wire. Now, unless there's something wrong with the cable, it will transmit the data or sound as intended. But build quality and design are where the money comes in. First of all, your biggest concern with a cable should be noise. And that problematic noise is called RFI, or radio frequency interference. Now, radio frequency is just that. It can come from a multitude of sources, including but not limited to cell phones, walkie-talkies, and obviously radio signals, because, radio. Now, I'm not talking about EMI, which is electromagnetic interference. For the most part, that should be handled from the source of the interference. And that usually happens when one of the pieces in your setup has dirty power, bad ground, all that jazz. Best bet for that is a UPS battery backup to cure those ails. But RFI can be a real pain in the butt. But it generally isn't an issue if you have decent cables, as its shielding should keep all that nasty RFI out. And that shielding can be varying degrees of effective, depending, of course, on cost. Okay then, let's take a look at how the cables are constructed. At the core, you have copper wires running through your cable. They're each coated with polyethylene, or PVC. Generally speaking, there's somewhere between 20 and 26 gauge wire. Then you have some filler to keep the wires bundled up nice and cozy, followed by a braid that is attached to the ground pin on your cable. And again, rubber coating to keep it all packed up nice and tight. Now, going back to that braid, it's generally copper or sometimes tin-plated copper. It's generally the best case for XLR cables as it's flexible. In some cheaper cables and even some more expensive ones, you might find a foil shield. Now, while it's great for keeping out radio frequencies, it's far easier to damage, meaning all them RFIs can just leak in. That said, if you're making your own cables and it's for permanent installation in walls or something of the sort, foil shielding is actually the way to go, especially since it gives 100% coverage against them pesky RFIs, and it's so much cheaper. The braided shield is only about 97 or 98% coverage, which is good enough for most applications, though it can allow some RFI through with gaps in the shielding. And for the most part, that's basically it. So then why the big swings in price? Well, even though the extra shielding and quality doesn't add that much to the end price of the product, it's not insignificant. You have quality of the copper, quality of the insulators, strand count of the wire, size of wire. Even the braid pattern of the shielding becomes a factor, also with the amount of materials being used. Also, there's a few other things that attribute to the higher price. With a more complex build, it generally means more goes into it, more man-hours, more machinery, more everything, including QA, or quality assurance. Think about it. If Amazon pumps out 50 of their cables to Mogami's one, it's only fair that Mogami's is going to be more expensive. And it doesn't just stop there. There's also the connector design. That can be a major issue. No point in getting the Cadillac of wires with the Chevette version of a connector. And if you plug and unplug a lot of XLRs, you'll know that there is a massive difference as you step up in quality of connectors. Also, strain relief in the cable is a big part of the conversation too. Something as simple as having proper strain relief can really add a lot of life to your cable. Now, once again, that's also added material and workmanship to the cable that can take extra time in production. Even the solder connections can come into play. They have to be done properly at the right heat, contact time, proper amount of solder, etc. All of that can play a massive role in the durability of the cable, especially over the course of several years. Something that, once again, adds to production time as well as QA time. And all of that time, as cheesy as it sounds, well, it's money. No matter how cliche you think it is, it's true. But there is one thing you end up paying for the most when buying higher quality cables, and that is their dependability. Some manufacturers offer lifetime warranties on their products, which in itself could be worth the extra few bucks. But let me ask you this: how much of your time is wasted trying to troubleshoot a bad cable? That is the one massive weakness in any setup, and more often than not, it's completely avoidable. And while a lot of the naysayers are screaming about just paying for the name on the cable, sure, that does come into play quite a bit. But the reputation of that name will come at a cost, whether you like it or not. So yeah, you can cheap out on cables, and for a time, I promise you it will all be fine. In fact, several of the cables in my setup cost no more than $15. You're probably not going to have any issues yet. I can promise you the sound quality is exactly the same, but as with anything else, there is a gamble involved. If there was one piece of advice I would say, there may not be any need for all that 24 karat gold plated connectors and stuff like that, or for the speaker wire that was forged from the tears of angels. But try to avoid the bottom of the bin. Just saying. Let me know. What kind of cables are you rocking? You got the Mogamis, those high-end ones, or are you rocking the Amazon ones? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, absolutely destroy that like button. If you really liked it though, hit that other button, the red one. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.